Yeah, look, I think many relationship counselors would actually identify communication as probably one of the biggest reasons for relationship breakdown. But I think also people think often communication is the ability to speak or express ideas, to your point before about being on the radio and being able to communicate. And, that's one half of the equation. Communication, in fact, is not speaking, but speaking is part of it. And so I would say, communication is basically made up of three things, right? And communication occurs when a message is transferred from one to another. And so the three things that you can think of when you think about communication is, one, there needs to be a message. So what are you communicating? There needs to be a speaker, so somebody communicating, and there needs to be a listener. Because it's like old adage, if a tree falls in the middle of a forest and there's no one around to hear it, did it make a sound,
Yeah, that's
so
right.
the biggest challenge people face in this area is that they often mostly think of communication as the speaking part of it.
So how do you help a couple who are on this journey of learning to communicate better with each other? And I think it's also important to note that this is a journey that continues, right throughout our marriages as well, even if you've been married for a long time.
Yeah, that's right. Look, I like referring to the Bible, because of our background in faith, and
it's a good book.
Marriage in particular, it's a good book. It's the word of life. So, one particular one in terms of communication that I like is James 1 verse 19, which reads, "Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters, you must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to angry."
It's very funny that you've used that verse, because I used to have that stuck on my kitchen bench when I used to have to wash the dishes at nighttime because we didn't have a dishwasher.
Okay.
And I just thought, rather than getting frustrated about all the dishes I'd have to wash, I just remind myself of these exact words. So good.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, we need that, right? That's where I do my brain programming as well, is at nighttime when we're clearing up the kitchen and washing the dishes. But sometimes we need to remind us, right? Our minds need to be reprogrammed because we are naturally quick to anger, quick to speak and slow to listen. But this encouragement, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Now imagine that was the other way around.
Paints an interesting picture, doesn't it?
Yeah, and look, I think the reality is remembering and keeping in mind that the best thing a couple can do for their relationship is to practice the art of active listening. Not just listening, but active listening.
Are there some sort of practical tips around this active listening?
Yeah, look, so I like this idea of a cinema. If you think about a cinema, you've got a screen at the front of the room, but typically at the back of the room there's a projector, film or digital or whatever the style. But you need these two elements, like to go and enjoy a movie, right? You got a screen, a white board or a white wall or something in the front of the room, and at the back of the room there's a projector shining a light. So when you're speaking, communication consists out of a screen and a reflector. Obviously the reflector is that's the screen, and the projector is someone talking. So if you think about it, the projector is the speaker sending a message, and the reflector is the screen reflecting that message back. And you need both of these two things to, in the cinema context, enjoy a movie. But in the communication context, you actually need a listener and a speaker for communication to occur. So a lot of people think that they were listening when they were merely waiting for their turn to speak. And in reality, that's often what we do. You've got a projector shouting a message, or not necessarily shouting, but projecting a message, and then there's no screen reflecting that message. There's just another projector projecting another message. Now imagine you point two projectors at each other. You're not going to see much, right? And it's very similar, when it comes to communication, It's in order for communication to effectively occur, you need to have a projector and reflector. So if you're the one listening to the communication, one practical tip that I'd give for people to up their communication is when your partner, or friend or colleague is bringing something to you and they're communicating or speaking to you, it's always great to start your sentence by something like, I hear you say, and then just repeat what they're saying, or ask them to elaborate on what they're saying. But, to make sure that what they're saying is actually being caught before moving down or moving on to the next step. Because I think sometimes we're too fast when it comes to communication, and we do ourselves a lot of good if we can slow down and start reflecting. I hear you say, did I hear you correctly?
Well, it's an interesting description or analogy, I guess, of the cinema, and how we can work communication into our relationships, particularly our marriages. And this will be something that you deal with extensively, I can imagine, in terms of marriages. Where can people go if they want to find out more? If they really want to look at working on improving the communication within their marriage, where can they go to find out more?
Yeah, look, so communication, like you rightfully said, is a big topic that we cover often and extensively. This is one of our topics in the marriage mentoring guide. So, if someone listening today feels like they, going through marriage mentoring might be beneficial for them, that's not something Family Life offers as a service, but we actually train marriage mentors. So if you're listening and you want to approach a more experienced couple, send them our way to pick up a marriage mentoring guide and take you through that. Or maybe that's something you want to do for someone else. So that's a great place to learn more about communication in a safe space. They can also search on our website under the podcast for the one that we did on communication. There we cover the topic, in about, I think, say 40 to 45 minute discussion, which is great content. And then, of course, our weekends to remember. We spend quite a bit of time on this topic, and it's just a great way to build in your relationship overall.